So I'm here to just talk very briefly about why you shouldn't implement Lean, which might seem a bit counterintuitive, but I see this happen a lot. And there's also, I hear people talking about how Lean doesn't work, or we've tried that, it failed, it doesn't deliver. And there's a reason why that occurred, and some of those reasons are what we're going to discuss here now. So, before I begin, let's talk about what Lean is and what Lean isn't. So, Lean is not about cutting costs. Okay, so actually, when people ask me, when people explain what I do back to me, they go, oh, you cut costs. It's actually got nothing to do with what we do at all. We don't reduce services. In fact, cutting costs and reducing services are very linked, and they're very, very easy to do. Cutting costs, you take a giant red pen and a budget, and you put a big line through it. That's how talented it is to cut costs. That's all it requires. Cutting services or reducing services is exactly the same. And if you're just going to cut costs, you will reduce services. It's not about disempowering the workforce. Again, I hear people talk about how the negative impact Lean has on the employee, and it disempowers them, and actually the reverse is true. It's not a one-off exercise. And actually, sitting there listening to the previous speakers talk about it, and I'm guilty of this too, we need to start changing the language about Lean, because we talk about implementing a Lean program. And that, by definition, makes you think that it's something that we're only going to do for a short amount of time. And actually, that's not it at all. It's a fundamental change in how we think about our work. It has to keep going. It can't just be what we're going to do for the next 6 months, and then we'll jump on whatever the next bandwagon comes along, or what the flavour of the month that happens to be talked about in the media then. And it's not a set of rules and tools to follow, although it does seem like it sometimes. Lean utilises a bunch of tools and techniques. It is not the tools and techniques themselves. So what is Lean then? Okay, so it is about reducing the cost of doing things, not about cutting it, about reducing it. And who wouldn't want that? It's about eliminating waste from services. So where we're doing something that just adds no value to the customer, why do we keep doing it? It's a bad customer experience for the person engaging in the service, and it's not a terribly great experience for the employee either. So who's winning out of this? No one is really. So it's about spotting that waste and eliminating it. It's about fulfilling the potential of our employees. Our employees have so much to offer us. It's astonishing. When we go into a new organisation, the first thing we do is we chat to people from all levels, because the wealth of knowledge they have is extraordinary, and they want to share it. It's about a culture change. It's about thinking differently about what we do. And it's just, frankly, it's just a collection of wisdom gathered over the last 150 years of business and manufacturing, originally. So this is what I'm talking about, I guess. This is the principles. I mean, all the tools fit in here somewhere. Some can be used in more than one box. But it's just about doing these 5 basic things. It's about looking what's value to the customer you're supplying the service to. It's about understanding the value stream about what you do. It's about how the work flows to the customer. It's about how the staff do that work, how it's pulled, and that constant approach to looking at perfection. So why do I say don't implement Lean? This is an article that a friend of mine passed me. Slightly obscure, called The Threat of Lean Processing. It is a real article, I didn't make it up. It appeared in a union magazine. And just to draw a quote from it there, the main purpose of Lean is to make a job basic, narrow and small, i.e. as cheap and efficient as possible. This can lead to workers being made to work smarter and harder. This is in clear opposition to our operational joint statement. And I read that and I think, wow, I mean, that's what you're beginning with. That's where you could be starting in some organisations. So, what's going to change that? You have to manage stakeholders, and there isn't just one. And I'm singled out the union there, but that's unfair. I'm a fan of unions, to be honest. What that example was was a union that wasn't involved, it wasn't engaged. It was left out of the tent. It was kept in a little dark corner and bullied and kicked. And so what did they do? They reacted. And they reacted, as you can see, quite opposingly to the ideas of Lean. Employees is another stakeholder that needs to be managed as separate from the unions, because there's a whole different bunch of employees and they've all got different wants and needs as well. So you need to engage them and you need to manage what their expectations are as well. There's the general public. There's all of us in this room. We all pay for public services. We're taxpayers. So we need to be minded about what we want. We engage in these services. And you've got your elected representatives, like we saw here this morning. And then you've got, finally, the media also plays a fairly big role. And do all of these people all want the same thing all the time? And the answer is, well, sometimes not. Sometimes what an elected representative wants is completely opposite to everyone else, because that's a platform they ran on to get elected in the first place, and it's not what anyone else wants to do, perhaps. Maybe. The union might have a completely different view on things. The media is looking for an angle that it can sell to sell more papers and get more viewers and listeners. So they're not always aligned. But if you manage the stakeholders, you can actually find common ground and you can work a way forward. But if you don't manage the stakeholders, you're going to get articles like that one from the union saying, we oppose absolutely everything you say. If you say it's white, I'm going to say it's black. Just because. For no other reason. So don't implement Lean, please, unless you're going to manage your stakeholders. Leaders. Leaders are like eagles. We don't have either of them in here. It's very true. When I go into organisations, I ask people, are the leaders visible? When was the last time they saw anyone? And the number of times I get a response that says, I've never met them. I've never even seen them walk through this floor. They're on the 8th floor. I'm on floor 1. They don't stop at floor 1, or 2, or 3. In fact, if you're summoned to the office, it's usually for a bad reason. Unfortunately, I've never been in trouble. That's kind of how we run a school, maybe. And that might work in school, but not how you run it in an organisation, whether it's public sector or private sector. But in fact, that's what we do. And Lean won't work unless the leaders are visible and the leaders are championing it. And like I said before, it's not about implementing it. The best example I saw this of, actually, of a leader initiating Lean, was he literally took everyone to the town hall. And he stood up on the podium, he had a great presentation, and all of the staff were there. And he told them very, very clearly what's going on, why we're going to do it, how we're going to do it. It was brilliant, actually. It was the best initiation of Lean I've ever seen. And then I never saw him again. So the next year, he was gone. And because his view was, I've done my bit, the rest is up to you. And that's not the case at all. His bit keeps going, as does yours. So my next bit is simply to say, don't implement Lean unless you have some sort of sponsorship and leadership. The third tip would be to say, learn how to do Lean properly. So if you're going to invest all this time and energy changing the way we think about things and changing the way we work, learn how to do it. And as Zoe said, you wouldn't hand a book and a set of car keys to your shiny new car to someone and say, figure it out for yourself, there's a test at the end. You get in and drive with them. It was a great example, a great analogy of learning to do Lean. You learn by doing and repeating it and involving as many people as you can. This is another little classic one. We often race away at the solution before we actually understand what the problem is. I don't know if any of you can relate to that, but it's very easy. We're kind of like, we're problem-solving generators as people. That's what we do. We come up with new ideas constantly. But actually, we're not great at stopping to think about what's actually the problem. And sometimes we're in such a rush to prove the value of the work we're doing that we leap at a solution and actually we erode our long-term value that we could have gotten out of it. And lastly, don't rely on me. We're ridiculously expensive. Consultants are rubbish. You don't want us. You really don't. You might want a little bit of our help, and that's what we're all here for today, but you need to learn how to do it for yourself. It's not a sustainable model to keep coming and calling us and bringing us in, or our competitors, or someone else, and ad nauseum. It's not what we're here for. Unfortunately, it's what some consultancies do, but it's not what you want. You want to train your own people. You want to build this in-house. So don't implement Lean unless you understand how to deploy it. And finally, so I think we're running over time a little bit. I'll wrap it up rather quickly. I love Dilbert. He always makes me chuckle. So I significantly increased my visibility at work today. Brilliant. Yesterday I was invisible, but now everyone knows me. You screwed up. Yeah, big time. You're all laughing because I think it's because you've all experienced it, and that's what actually makes me laugh, because it's kind of things that we see every day in work. What an amazing workplace it would be if celebrating success happened as often and as visibly as how we celebrate, for want of a better word, failure. How we put a big spotlight on failure. Everyone knows when something has gone wrong, particularly if it's a really big issue. Right up to the top of the chain to the bottom of the chain. But if someone has done really well, and it might be a small change, it could even be a big change, do people at all levels know about it across the organisation? Very, very rarely. We are terrible at celebrating success. I don't know why that is. I think that's a philosophical question about the nature of people that goes well beyond the scope of this. But we are really quick to put a big spotlight on when things go wrong, and we're really terrible at celebrating our things that go well. And if you're trying to change a culture, if you're trying to embed Lean, saying, wow, that was great, is imminently more powerful than going, you screwed up. Because actually, when you keep saying you screwed up to people, you create a culture of people who are too afraid to take a risk, too afraid to go out on a limb. They don't want to change anything because you saw what happened to so-and-so when he tried to change something. People are afraid of that sort of thing. But actually, if success is celebrated and people can see it being celebrated, it's not pop psychology by any stretch. It's just about, let's reward when things go well. So don't implement Lean, please, unless you're going to engage your staff and celebrate success. Because if you don't do any of those things, you'll be sitting back here, or you'll be sitting in a meeting somewhere, and you'll be the person that goes, yeah, we tried that Lean stuff, it doesn't work, it's rubbish. As Zoe said, you could call it fried bananas. It's probably doesn't have the same ring to it for my company name, and I'd have to rebrand, but it doesn't matter what you call it. The tools work. They absolutely do. It's just whether you use them well or you don't. And I think when we go into organisations, these are the classic things that we see, especially if they've tried something like this before. And then actually you've got a harder task, because you begin from a starting place that says, yeah, we tried that, didn't work. And that's much harder to bring people along for the journey than walking into an area that goes, yeah, we've never tried it, let's have a look. So you're starting from a much more negative position. And unfortunately, some of you probably are. But that doesn't mean it can't be overcome. But please, don't even try it unless you're going to handle some of these things.